Hey everybody, Scout Crafter here again, TGIF. Again, you made it through another week. Congratulations. I have a video today that it's a little bit of a kind of a mosh a little bit, but this one here has been irking me and I wanted to make this video for a while, so I hope you'll kind of bear with me. Has to do with the Channellock video I just made. Now I restored those 1957 Model 420s, and you know I'm a big fan of Channellock. In fact, if you look over here, there it is. You could see that I've had Channellock for many years, and as a matter of fact, this one here is one of my first pairs. My mother bought me. This one's like 15 years old, so I've been a big fan of Channellock, and this isn't even all the ones I have. Let me go back a few years and talk about these pair of diagonals. Years ago, I've had these. These are a pair of Channellock. These are 337s, you could see here. And I had these for many years. They worked really good. I was doing a lot of hiking at night, and I used to come across things that I needed to clip off, like cords, extension cords, and things like that, things people were throwing out. So I don't want to take these with me. So I said, let me go out and get a pair just for hiking. I got these, okay? These here, you can look here. Now you have to look closer because the stamping is a little bit different now, but this is the 338s. They're almost identical, but they're just a little bit longer. You can see here, they're just about 3/4 of an inch to an inch longer, but these are great, right? So I get home and I'm looking at these, and they work great and everything, but man, everything I touched on here was sharp as can be. So I was, I said, this can't be. I said, so sharp. These points right here were like razor. I mean, over here, all along here. So everything was just super sharp. The edges here, I was like, man, that's kind of weird. And I went, touched my old one. I said, they're sharp, but not that sharp, but these were like, really, I said, I couldn't believe it. So I make a rant video about it. So this is funny. I make this rant video, right? And I'm like, yeah, the sharp. So what I did was, I softened all the edges. I took it down the corners here and took this over the belts and just softened it a little bit so it's not scraping you when you're touching, because it was in my backpack and I would grab it and, So this is how I met a good friend of mine, Scott, from Scott's Tool Thoughts. And Scott had said he saw my video, and I saw, he didn't know me at the time. I didn't know him at the time. He puts out a video and he's like, yeah, some guy was moaning about the sharp edges on the Channellocks, and the reason that these are sharp is if you have a piece of conduit, you can deburr it and stuff. And so Scott was like, so I responded to Scott's video. I said, hey Scott, that was me that made that video. So Scott was kind of shocked, I said, yeah, and I told him the deal. Now Scott's a big tool guy, like all of us, but Scott's really into it, and he understood then what I was talking about, because I said, yeah, it's just not, obviously here, the edges that are made to deburr some. I said, this whole tool was really sharp. So since then, Scott and I have become really good friends. But now, fast forward to last year. Last year, I was doing a review on some of these lineman pliers, and here is a pair of Channellock 369. Now, these are their lineman pliers, right? So I said, okay, let me look. Now, first of all, the whole reason that we're talking about this is because when I did this restoration here the other day, both Brian Burke and Glenn Watkins both had told me, they said, yeah, I just bought some Channellocks, and Brian had just bought the same model, and he said that his was, all sharp and everything, and he had to go through and deburr everything. So, and the funny thing is, Glenn had said that he bought a pair, and he said that they were so bad, he thought they were knockoffs. That's how bad the fit and finish was. So when I bought these, I had to look through a bunch of different packages because I was looking at the grinds. Now, the grinds are all different on every one, on how they match, and talk about sharp. Oh, gee, and I deburred these with a file a little bit. This was another one that was crazy sharp. Okay, so this is turning into a bit of a rant, right? I didn't want it to be, but I have to tell you something. The reason that it was irking me so much is because I want you to look at this video. I'm going to put it in the link, okay? It's in the link right now. And it's the Channellock factory tour. And I want you to look at this video, especially halfway through the video. You're going to see these guys grinding their tools. Now, I understand that when you're a manufacturer, here in America, you know, you're trying to keep up with the Asian products, and there's no way you can compete with the game isn't set up for us here. So they're trying their best to compete, and that means they only have maybe 30 seconds a tool, if that much, maybe 15 seconds to grind that. So when you see me doing a tool over, that Channellock 1957 took me 3 hours. There's no way a guy could put 3 hours into that and make. So that's why I do it, to go kind of past what is expected. So when these guys that are working at Channellock, when they get this tool up, they have maybe 10 seconds to do this grind that takes me 3 hours to do. So you can't expect that, you know, when you see a little bit of imperfection here and there, that's just, you know, that's the way it's going to be. They can't, there's no way they could sell this tool for under 30. Now, if you look at Gador or Kreuz, you know, some of the high-end German pliers, those things are $50, $60 because, you know, they have computer grinders that do all that. So every one is exact. There is absolutely, you know, no difference between one model and another. You look at Channellocks, every one is different because it's hand ground and stuff. So what I do is when I get a pair like this, and I know these edges are all going to be razor sharp. This point here, razor sharp. So that's when you take your little Dremel or whatever out, and you soften the edge and you customize it and you make it good for you. And then if you're going to go out in the field or something, you know, once you take it down, you're going to have to cover it with a little bit of shellac or clear lacquer or something. That's, you know, dip it into like a polyurethane, something to keep it from rusting. But to get off all them sharp edges, because they really can be uncomfortable. Okay, so that was a bit of a rant, and I apologize, but, you know, when we're into tools, you know, this is something, anything they can't finish at the factory, we'll finish ourselves, you know. But don't be afraid if you get a tool. Don't live with it. That's what I'm getting at. Don't live with it. Don't live with sharp edges, things like that. Take them off. Enjoy it. You know, this tool is supposed to be buttery soft in your hand. It's not supposed to be something that you're going to cut yourself on the job or whatever. But anyway, let's get to another subject here. I'm going to talk about Punisher woodworking. A good friend of mine, Peter Kopovich from upstate New York. He's a Marine, a disabled Marine, and what happened, and this is a good lesson I learned from many years ago from the Scouts, and that's why we had so many hobbies, is that never put all your eggs in one basket. And that is such a great cliche to live by. I mean, even whether you're investing or whatever, anything in your life, never put everything into one basket, because obviously if you drop that basket, you're SOL. So what happened is Peter was going through a bit of a depression because, of course, you know, you're recently disabled. He was a guy that was, you know, Marine, the whole thing. And so what do? You know, if you don't have anything to fall back on, some other hobbies or anything, you know, you're going to be in a world of hurt. So thank goodness he found woodworking. He found a tool restoration, things like that. So, you know, he turned his life around, you know, and that's an important lesson to all of us. You know, if something happens to us, you know, if you have everything invested in one thing and that goes sour, then you're in trouble. So we're going to send Peter some of the tools that Jeff had sent us, because Jeff, when he sent it to me, says, if you want to give it away, whatever the case. Jeff, turns out, was a 40-year machinist. And we knew that from the box that he made. I said, there's something, this guy is, this guy, that's too professional for just a regular guy. So sure, he was a 40-year professional, you know, machinist. So now we could see why that box looked like it did. So let's go look at what we're going to put together for now, Peter. Peter does all hand woodworking and things like that. He doesn't do, you know, he likes to use hand. He likes to get into the old-fashioned type woodworking. So I'm putting together a bunch of different auger bits, things like that. This is just some of them, but this is some of the ones that that Jeff sent. And you can see here, these are a real good shape. The problem is they get a little, you know, grunged up after years and years. Now, Peter likes to do tool restoration, so I'm not going to restore any of these. But I just thought you would like to see how a couple of these things work. For example, these are countersinks. And countersinks, anytime you want to put a screw, a flathead screw under the level so it doesn't stick up, you countersink the hole. So that's what these do, and these work great. And these are all nice and sharp. These are beautiful. And let me show you how. Let's say we pre-drilled a hole, and we want to put a flathead screw. This is what a flathead screw looks like. We want to put it in here. But of course, if you try and put this in, you see it protrudes through the top. So you have to, what they call, countersink the hole. And there are different obviously power countersinks, which are meant for power tools, and they will just cut off usually about here. But this was the old type, and this went into the hand drills, and I'll show you how that works because I have a hand drill ready. Now here we have a beautiful $4 that I paid at a tractor show, and this is a 2-speed Miller's Fall drill. And the reason it's 2-speed, you can see here the gear. Right now the gear is meshing with the center gear here, and that's a slow speed. You could see here by how fast the chuck is moving in comparison to the handle. Now if I want to make it the higher speed, you push this little detent here, the yoke pops out and goes into the bottom hole. Now the upper gear is meshing with the outer gear ring, and you can see how fast it goes. So we'll use the high speed on this, and we'll chuck that piece of wood in there and show you how the countersink works. Okay, we have that piece of wood chucked up in Great Grandpa's vise. The hole is right there. We're going to take the brace here. We're going to hold it against, put the countersink into the hole, brace against our chest here, and move this handle like this until we get the right counter. You can see how quickly it goes through because of how sharp it is. And that's it. We have a beautiful countersink. Okay, you can see we did this beautiful countersink here. It took less than a few seconds. Now when the screw goes in here, you could see that it's flush or below, just below the surface. That is a countersunk screw, and that's what we use it for, and it's just a beautiful tool. Now I know Peter wanted to restore these because that's what he likes to do, but there's a little bit of a bend in this bit here, and just a little bit one here. And I don't know if Peter has the the right facilities to do this, or ever did it before. I don't know what the deal. So I'm gonna just do a quick cleaning, and I want to show you how to straighten these bits out if you have that problem. Now with only a little wire brushing, you could see how beautiful these bits came out. I mean, they look just beautiful, and that's just wire brushing. Now, there's a couple ways that we can take the bend out. First of all, we have to determine where the bend is, but you can easily take it to a piece of wood chucked up into the vise here, and you can see where the high spots are, and just tap them down like that, and get it to be straight like that. But again, to do this, to get it to it's really accurate, we are going to use what's called a dial indicator. This was given to us again by Jeff, the machinist, who used these, I'm sure, every day for 40 years. But what we're going to do is we're going to chuck it up into the lathe. It doesn't have to be a lathe. You could use it in anything that turns, but we're going to use the lathe because we have it here that has that chuck, and we know it's accurate. And this is graduated into thousands. So every time I go around 0, that's 100 thousandths, and it goes all the way up to 1,000 thousandths, which is an inch travel, and that's how this works. So I'm going to put it into this inexpensive magnetic holder here, and we just slip it into here, tighten it up, and then I'll show you how you put that on. Here we have the drill bit chucked into the lathe. I'm going to turn it on just to show you how out of round it is, or how to straighten it. And you can see it's right about here that we have the issue. So I'm going to hook up the dial indicator and show you just how much. Okay, now here's where machining gets really fun and interesting, you know. And again, a different use for the lathe or so. But we have the dial indicator resting on here. Now, you can adjust it to, you know, to wherever you want it to sit over here. We'll put on 0 right here. Well, now it's sitting on 0. And as I move the carriage from one side to the other, you could see the deflection. You could see how that needle is changing, okay? And you can see here we're at the 20 thousandths, and you could see almost up to 30 thousandths of deflection. Now, what does that mean? Plus the 5 over here, so that's a low spot. But when I turn it this way, watch the needle as I turn the chuck, you could see here we're up to 40, 50, 60, 70 thousandths almost out. Now, that seems like a lot. But if you look at the top of the needle over here, you can see the top here, that little gap. You can see it's that's how much it's out. It looks like about 1/8 of an inch out. But you can see how this becomes such a tremendous asset to a machinist or anybody else that wants to use it. So now we can figure out where the high spot is, which would be right about here. And then you could tap down with a hammer, and you can keep doing it until you get it close to 0. Now, depending what the material is, you can manipulate the metal either with a hammer, or you can even do it by hand. See, if we get to the high spot here, right, we can pull this down, and you can see what happens to the needle. You pull it down a little bit, and until we get that needle moving as little as possible. and then you move it down a little bit more on the shaft, and you see here we have, that's 10, 20, 30, about 40 thousandths out. But if we pull it down a little bit here and allow for the spring back, look, we're only up to about 20 thousandths there. You see how we just took a little bit of that bend out? It's getting better. But then you have to work your way down a little bit by moving the carriage down over here, and then see where that is. And then, so that's how you get out the bends of something. Now, like here you could see we went from about 70,000 run out to about 10,000 run out. Now, 10,000 might seem like a lot, but let me show you when the bit is spinning. That looks pretty straight. I mean, you wouldn't notice it in a hand drill. So that's about pretty much what you shoot for. Here we chucked up the other one, and you could see again, it would be in a hand bit. Let's take a look what it looks like spinning. That's well enough for a hand brace. That'll be fine. Okay, you know what? Maybe just one. Okay, I guess I couldn't help myself. I just had to see how nice this would come in. Look how beautiful that is, huh? They can all come out like this. It's up to you, Peter. I hope you enjoy them, and I'll be sending you some other stuff. And Jeff and Dar, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And the gift that keeps giving, I guess. All right, everybody, have a nice day. Take care. Enjoy your weekend. Bye-bye.